So you beautiful people, a lot of you guys have been requesting in the comment section that I show my updated settings for Call of Duty Warzone. Now I am a console player, so this is evidently going to be a console video, and a lot of you guys have come over from my linear setting video to ask me if I still play on those particular settings. So I'm going to clarify that all today. Now if you are new here and you enjoy all things Call of Duty Warzone, then consider subscribing to the channel with the notification bell clicked so you get my videos as soon as they are published. So let's head over to the settings that I use. Now the brightness is going to be something that is down to you guys. Now you may have previously seen my videos looking a bit washed out, and this was initially I wanted to see people in corners, but these are adjustments I've made on my screen. So 50 is the default setting, and I find this absolutely fine to work with. In terms of the safe area, that's something that is totally subjective to yourselves. In terms of film grain, now this usually starts, and I think it is 0.25, and basically the screen on the right hand side that you can see is what film grain will look like. Now it will give you a more visceral feel in terms of it looking like a movie. However, I turn it totally off because I want everything as clear as possible, especially when you're trying to acquire enemies that are further out with your sniper scope. Subtitles, I just don't have them on. In terms of colorblind type, now I have Deuteranopia on as my particular one. As we go through them, you can see the others look quite washed out, and for me this gives a nice color palette for the game. Now to get this incorporated in not just the interface but the game, you will need to go to colorblind target and change this to both. And as if I turn it off to world, now you can see the difference there. You should be able to subtle difference, but you should be able to see the difference, and this just makes the color palette in the game a lot brighter, a lot more visceral. So for me, it makes identifying enemies a lot easier, especially those who are running around in those outfits like the phase one, where they've got brighter elements to their actual operators. And as we go through time, things are getting brighter as more and more people start to buy operators from the store. World motion blur, I like this turned off because I think it gives you a disadvantage, blurring enemies that you may not have saw in the distance. You want this disabled, and you also want to disable motion blur. You can see the difference just on the screen there. It's not necessary in my personal opinion. The minimap shape, I have mine on square. As you can see, I think you get an additional 25 to 30% more minimap displayed on your screen when you use square. So it's just a no-brainer. It needs to be changed, and if you haven't done this, you better do it now. Minimap rotation, I like this to rotate with me, and that is basically just easier for me to navigate and do call-outs for my teammates. And just to, you know, kind of amalgamate the two, the compass cardinal direction text, I like this to stay on as letters. So when I do spin and I'm not looking at the minimap, I can look at my compass quickly and just tell my mates that enemy is west, west, west. It's easy to call out numbers as well, but I just like constant reminder every now and again of which direction I'm traveling in. So once I start running in that direction, I subconsciously know in my head which way the compass is. And these little things that make your game a lot better in the long run. Audio wise, I use boost low. I have done an extensive video on this which will be linked down in the description if you want to view that as to why I use boost low. In a nutshell, I believe this is the best for Warzone when it comes to hearing, specifically footsteps. My master volume, I have this turned down ever so slightly. Music volume, I have it turned right down. I don't like to turn it right off because for me, I do like that sort of vibe. I don't want a dead sounding game. Now, the reason I've turned this down is because when you get into intense situations, i.e. it's the last 5 of the circle, this is going to start playing some theatrical music, which is highly distracting. Now at 10, I don't find it distracting at all, but it does bring that vibe in that I need to concentrate, and that's kind of why I have it on. Dialogue volume I have on 65, effects volume at 100%. Juggernaut music, I don't really use it, but it's enabled. And I like my hit markers sounds as the classic, as I find there's a lot more clarity to confirm. It's just a confirmation really that I am hitting my acquired target. Voice chat enabled, open mic, these are purely subjective stuff that you can do just for your particular microphones. So let's move on to my actual controller stuff. My button layout is just default. I don't need any of these bumper jumper and all them stuff because I do own a Scuff 4PS Pro. That's what I've got. I think it might be the Infinity. I can't remember exactly what it's called. Yes, the Infinity, sorry. So that is my controller, and that's why I just don't change any of these and leave them as default. In terms of my dead zones, I find that 0.06 is comfortable for me. It's quick enough with minimal drift on the sticks, and I've gone down from the original 6 that I previously had that you guys saw. I feel like 5 for me is the best compromise between close range combat and acquiring targets at a longer range without being too erratic. Now, my multiplier is set at 0.82 for my low zoom, which again helps me acquire targets at a longer range. And then for my sniper rifles, as you can see, it's a lot higher, 1.20. So I get a swifter movement when it comes to my actual sniper rifle scope. Now, we've spoken about this. I've done a whole video as to why you should change it. It is the most consistent in my opinion because it's basically directly mapped to how you move, in what kind of velocity you move your sticks. So you're always going to get the same response with no additional added mechanics from the game which process and then it happens in the game. I just want it raw to how my sticks are done, and that's why I have a linear response curve. And a lot of you guys have responded to this video and have changed over and agree that linear is the most consistent. What I will say is you will need to tweak your dead zones and probably lower your stick sensitivity, because initially you will be all over the place because it is directly mapped. But I came over from Fortnite on a linear setting also, and I just believe for a controller player it's where it's at. You don't want no additional processing on your controllers. But again, some of you may choose to use any of the other settings, the dynamic or standard. Controller vibration, I have that disabled because I find it a bit of a distraction. Aim assist, I've gone back to standard because I find this the best one to marry with linear. In terms of weapon mount activation, ADS and melee, I have enabled for my weapon movement exit, because when I'm mounted, I just literally want to run, and that just takes me out instead of having to do additional processing through my brain as to what button I need to press. Aim down sight behavior, obviously hold. Equipment behavior is hold, but my user / reload behavior is contextual tap. This is the fastest way to loot in Call of Duty Warzone. Now, if you're someone that's playing Modern Warfare, this might not be the best behavior for you, because you will end up picking up a lot of other stuff that you may not want to pick up. And another little reminder for you guys, if you do go over to contextual tap, you need to hold to reload if you do enter any type of vehicles, as this will swiftly eject you out of a vehicle if you do press this whilst in a vehicle. Depleted ammo weapon switch enabled. I just like to do it by default sometimes so I can just focus with my analog sticks on where my enemy's going. In terms of movement, I have this on tap so you can do the tap slide cancel behavior, so you move quickly across the map. Auto move forward, obviously disabled. Automatic sprint, you don't want to be going flying off the edge of a building when you start to walk, and when you're trying to be stealthily, you just don't want this actually enabled because you will just start running and bait your position out. Vehicle camera enabled, recenter, and a parachute auto deploy, because sometimes I do actually forget to pull my parachute out because I've assumed that the game's going to do it on the first drop for me. So I've just got into the habit of any second drop after the initial drop, I know muscle memory wise that I need to pull out my parachute myself. I hope that you found these settings helpful. These are my personal settings. Just think objectively, these aren't a one size fit all kind of settings, so you will need to tweak these to better suit yourselves. However, the majority of them are little settings that tweaked together make a massive difference on the overall experience for Call of Duty Warzone. Guys, there are many buttons you can hit, but a like and subscribe button, I hope they took your fancy, and as always guys, don't forget to stay on the right track. Peace.